Question for you. Have you ever gone fishing like on a weekend, say like a Saturday, and you get out there and it's a struggle, you know, like it's decent. It's a new lake. That's the other thing. It's a new lake. It's a struggle. And you get through the day, you don't catch that much. You're kind of frustrated with yourself. And you're like, I really could have done more and been better prepared to get out here. Not saying it would have worked, not saying it would have been perfect, but you kind of get that feeling. It's like, you know what? I came up short. I could have done more. Here's what we're gonna do. I got a short little video for you. I'm going to show you, I'm going to a lake that I've never been to before. It's called Tim's Ford. It's in Tennessee. Never been there. I think it's a mixed bag fishery, smallmouth, largemouth, and some spots. Never been there though, and I want to be prepared, because one thing that happens to me is I'll get out there, and unless I catch like a couple fish in the first couple hours or so, the wheels start spinning off. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to prepare and kind of take some of the me going crazy out of the equation, and do it all before we get on the water. So stay tuned. I hope you guys enjoy this. All right. So here's what I'm gonna do. I got my HGS Live all booted up right here, and you can see Ford Lake. That's it. It's misnomed here. So one thing I want to tell you about that's kind of cool is the C-map, the background mapping that I use that I can do the shading and stuff on. They just came out with a Tennessee chip. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to select that, and it is going to populate this joker. Oh, that's kind of cool. There's already like a bunch of like marked fishing spots, like cool fishing holes that I didn't put on here. That's really cool. So here's the first thing, and the first thing is probably one of the most important things. You guys, I've always talked about like my shading. So my shading is gonna lead me the way to fish. So the way I have my shading set up right now is it's cut off at about 30 feet or so. Tim's Ford is, from what I can understand from the map, it's a pretty darn deep lake, 111 feet. It almost reminds me a little bit of Smith. You can see it's friggin' 99, 53. So one thing on my C-map that I do is I have two different settings, and I kind of go back and forth between them. If I'm fishing like more of like a highland or a super deep lake, I'll turn on that. And if I'm fishing like a more Gunnersville kind of, not flat, they're deep, but they're not super deep, I'll turn that on. And that's a different shading option. So I'm gonna go down into my chart options and go to shading right down there, and I'm gonna turn off, watch this, so I'm gonna turn off my number 2, and I'm gonna show you how I have it graded, but watch what happens. You see all that? So on these deeper water lakes, I've found that, fish can be in 100 feet of water, over 100 feet of water, but I find it's very viable if you highlight down to like 50 or 60 foot. Now granted, the water level is going to be a little different when we get there, but can you see, I want to actually do this again. Look how different this point looks when I do that shading adjustment. Like literally it jumps out at you, and if that shading adjustment wasn't on there, watch what happens. It disappears. Now this is all viable water, and it kind of shows you the way the lake flows. Like, so you can see like this point isn't just like right there. It doesn't stop right there. It comes out and drags out. So watch again. Kind of cool, huh? So that's the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out like my palette that's going to work for the lake. Now we talked about like being prepared and pre-fishing. So one thing that I've found really helps me, like I said, it doesn't work all the time, but it gives me a goal and direction for the day, which for me works. You got to figure out your own kind of like strategy for how you fish. But for me, I need kind of a plan so that when the wheels come off, I can kind of gather myself. So we're going to be dropping in at the dam down here when I actually go. So that's all the way down there. So what I'm going to first look for, we're in winter, cold water fishing. There's kind of like two places that I'm going to focus on. One is going to be like main lake points that go back into big creeks. So for instance, you got that's a pretty big creek. So I can scroll in, see these guys right here? They dip out. This is the main lake. So you got the big main lake. And I also like to fish. Okay, so I'm really dumb too. I'm a small boat guy. Like I'm in this, well, this is an almost 19 foot, but I was in my tracker, like it's a 17 and a half, 18 foot boat with a 75 horsepower. I am a small boat fisherman. I freaking go from the ramp and try to find the closest stuff where I can catch fish. Like it makes me more comfortable when I'm on a new lake because I'm not worried about running into an issue, or, I kind of know I can gradually get situated on the lake. Not always the best decision, but for me, that's how I approach things. So, that's only, what, a mile from the dam, if that. So we're looking at this first bay, and points point the way to fish. Thank you, Al Lindler. So this is kind of a cool setup because we got a point here, a point here, point here, a point here, and then it drifts back into this pocket. So these winter fish, as it gets super duper cold, that's what I don't know, like the water temperature and stuff. As it gets super duper cold, they're probably going to be on these like first kind of main lake points. They go into the backs of the creeks from what I understand, and then they push back out as winter continues. So like these long kind of like tapering points that dump off into super deep water, they might be suspended over it, you know, and we're talking about spots and smallies mostly, but they might be suspended over it. They might be kind of laying if there's some chunk rock there. But these kind of nice points point the way to super deep winter fish. But we also want to look at, see how you have these pockets back here and it kind of flattens out. You know, these flat areas, oftentimes in early winter, like when the water's not super duper cold, all that bait gets back there and it's still back there from the fall. So like that flat spot kind of deal, they'll be schooling out there, they'll be on top, they'll kind of, if there's docks back in there. So what I'm going to do first is, I really like this point right here, and it looks like it says R, so there's rubble and rock on there. Obviously there's smallies in this lake. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to put that point there, and I'm going to drop a waypoint. Now the waypoint that I drop is important to me because I use this dive flag. So I have my graph kind of coded in a system, and the system makes sense to me. So when I'm looking at a new lake, or even when I'm reviewing, say, like Gunnersville or Pickwick or any of these lakes that I go to, especially like during ledge season and stuff, I will go through and jump on my CMAP and pick out areas and drop dive flags on them. The dive flag in my like brain code means like this is a point of interest. This is something that I want to check out. The reason I use the dive flag is that red is like high contrast and it shows up, it's square, it's super simple, like it's very obvious. So I use that as a notification like, hey Mike, you know, at the very least you want to idle over this, check it out, scan it for bait, take a look. So let's look a little bit more. I'm going to show you kind of some of the other stuff that I'm going to look for. The whole theory behind this is when I get out there, if I go fish for an hour or two, I don't catch a single fish and I'm like freaking out, it's back to basics. The things that I pick out on this map aren't perfect. They're not like the most ideal fishing spots, but they're spots that follow like the basic concepts of, you know, fishing, points, you know, flats in the back of some of these creeks, you know, areas where bait's gonna stack up, you know, some simple principles. And dude, if you drop a bunch of points like this and you mark enough stuff, what I found is, especially on a deep water lake where you're gonna run a lot of stuff and do a lot of running and gunning, you know, one of those points is gonna work. I'm not tournament fishing or anything like that. I'm fishing to put a grin on my face and catch some fish and like make a video for you guys. So I want to catch some fish and run into them. So what I'll do, I talked about points. Points are super simple. Well, let's talk about kind of like a little horseshoe. I think I saw it. Yeah, check this thing out. So this is main lake stuff. I don't know if these fish are going to be in this point, and it's probably a community hole, dude. Like it looks like it's marked on here as like super duper community. Oh, it's an obstruction, even better. But so this is a giant deep water flat. Like something like this, it's super obvious and super standard. But look, there's a little hump. Now, this is probably according to Summer Pool. This says it's about 48 feet or so. That hump might actually be like 10, 15 foot like shallower than it is right now. So you're talking like 35 feet. That's like ideal, dude, for like smallmouth, spotted bass. And I love these little humps because what you can do is you can idle over them, scan them, look for bait on all the edges, and you really don't even have to like fish them to check them. All this kind of stuff where like you can idle, that's like a nice like kind of plateaued point flat right there. So you can idle across this or 45 it, and dude, between side scan and down scan and your broadband, like you can see if something's there, all to kind of be a little more efficient. Because see, you got this other like whole flat thing, like them jokers could be chasing bait all over that point. It's just a flat area point, and it's going to be a little bit shallower than it says on the map because we're pulling down to winter pool, which is lower. So I'm going to drop a point on that. Once again, I'm using my coding that makes sense to me. You know, if you want to try this, you can develop your own style kind of coding. But that's another kind of classic place, a little hump, a little flat. Let's take a look. I want to look kind of back in these creeks a little bit too. So oftentimes the creek channels are key if, you know, you get a warming day or if it's like early winter and they're gradually moving out. So one thing I'm seeing immediately, do you guys see how that's like orange back there and that's orange right there? So this is where the shading kicks in. When I scroll up on there, but it's once again going to be like a super duper nice flat. You see, it's 45 feet, but really with winter pool, it's going to be like 35, 30 feet. I like that. And once again, I can scan all this. And if these jokers are sitting in that trench or sitting in that gut that comes back in there, like I can scan, see, and catch, which is the way I kind of like to fish when it comes to these deep things. I like to have some confidence. Going around and like hopping just random stuff and just throwing a bait at it, I don't like that. Sometimes you got to do it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark that, and it's just kind of a little flat that looks pretty solid. There's access to deep water, but it also goes back into these creeks, you know, that dump in like that. There might even be a little color to the water too, since we've had a little bit of rain. Now you see the same thing right here. No, and it looks like CMAP already put a mark on that guy. Oh, Anderton Branch it's called. So this also flattens out. See how it flattens out into that pocket like that? I like that kind of stuff because those fish could be on this ledge right here. They could be in there's a little like creek channel that shoots into there. See how it turns? You have an inside turn right there with another ledge. There's a nice little inside turn point there with a ledge. And what's cool too is in this case, there's 3 different branches. So I could run all of these guys and just scan through them and look. And just be more efficient, because that's the other thing that I found. If I have some starting off points and I can graph and kind of see like what the lake looks like underwater, how it's behaving, where the bait's at, what depth level, and you know, you can start isolating stuff and really hedging on the graph once you get out there. But you have to have some places, some starting points to kind of keep you on task, keep you focused, and having you look at the right stuff. Because in the end, dude, they're fish, right? Keep it simple. My buddy on Lake Guntersville, he's a guide on, go check him out actually, Ryan Salzman. Super cool dude. He's dude, his Instagram's meme lord. Freaking go get him, buddy. I love it. But in any case, though, he said probably one of the smartest things that I've heard, because you know it's been up and down for me fishing some of these new lakes. It's been a struggle. You know, I'm always trying to go back to things that I know from Florida and that. But he's like, bro, simplify. Like, dude, just I go out and I look for the simplest fish, the most standardized stuff. And like, it makes sense. Sometimes you overthink, like, they're fish, dude. Granted, they get pressured and they get beat up and they act funny, but sometimes you overthink things and really just put way too much weight on what the fish know how to do. So simplify things, and especially when you're fishing a new lake, it's a great way to approach it. Well, I hope that gave you guys some tips on kind of how I approach like new lakes, and especially not to like scramble out. You know, think about points, think about humps, think about turns, inside turns and pockets and flats and pockets, like just simple stuff to keep me on task when I get out there, because new lakes are always challenging. You know, every once in a while you go out and you freaking wax them, which is an awesome feeling. But more often than not, you know, if you're a newbie to a lake, like it takes some time to kind of digest, figure out, especially if you're from like a different region. Like, dude, I don't have a huge amount of experience fishing these kind of mid to highland reservoirs, and that's exactly what this is. So I get a little kind of scrambled out when I'm not catching fish, I'm not seeing fish, I'm not seeing bait, because I don't know what the hell to do. I don't know what like plan B is. So if I lay out some of these points and have a good plan and just kind of, you know, run to the back of the pocket, scan that, check out that point. It's simple. And then I use the shading to kind of expand on that once I get out there. It's a great way to just start simple, have fun, don't scramble, don't friggin' spin out. But if you guys got any tips for me, especially any Tim's Ford's like tip, feel free to drop them down in the comments box. But let me know what your strategies are for a new lake. This is something simple. I'm a technology guy, so it makes sense to me to like look at depths, look at it. It doesn't always work, but it keeps your head kind of in order when you get out there. Because I'm going to go, once we end this video, I'm going to go mark another like 25, 30 spots. And like, they're all going to have those dive flags on them. They're going to be things that I'm going to check out. It'll make me more efficient when I get out there. And it'll make me feel like I have like a goal and a drive. Plus, I'm going to mark all different things. So I'm going to look at points. I'm going to look at humps. I'm going to look at horseshoes and stuff like that. So one of them's got to have something on it, right? So let me know what you guys think. Make sure to like and subscribe to this video. Check out CMAP and the shading function. It's super cool on my lowrance. But I need to go get packed up, mark some more points, because I want to go explore this lake. Thank you guys for watching. Tight lines.